So hello, I'm Jeannette Frey, Director of Bibliothèque Cantonale et Universitaire Lausanne and President of LIBER. Dear Professor Rengmans, Rector of University of Southern Denmark, dear Bertil Dort, Director of Library of Southern Denmark University, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends. Welcome to LIBER's 51st annual conference here at the home of University of Southern Denmark in Odense. After 2 years of virtual conferences, what a joy to be able to see you here all in person. LIBER organized very successful online conferences in 2020 and 2021 with a Belgrade flavor. For the first time in its history, it allowed several thousand people and colleagues all over the world to participate. But alas, it's so much better to see you all in real. This conference opening, it's the last I'll do, as I'm ending my second term as a LIBER president. 4 years. That's not such a long time. But well, I think my UK colleagues would be, it was interesting. But also, of course, it was interesting because there was a challenging time. When I became a LIBER president in 2018, my own motivation was, in fact, in citizen science, open science, impact of artificial intelligence in libraries. That were the things I wanted to discuss with you. But soon I had to acknowledge that the universe was sending me a message that priorities would be otherwise, less about how we live with artificial intelligence than about how we just live together as humans. First came Brexit. At some point, it was predictable. Nonetheless, it was a shift in Europe that we had to address, and we are still addressing in LIBER. Suddenly, the channel became a border again, with its queues and passports to show, as I've been also have seen also this morning on Twitter for so many colleagues who came to Odense from UK. Then in 2020 came the COVID pandemic, just when we were preparing the LIBER conference. We worked hard to overcome physical separation during confinement by providing the best possible online experience for our 2020 and 2021 conferences and develop more online services and webinars for our members to further implement open science in Europe, as it was especially relevant also during this pandemic period. Just as we emerged from the COVID pandemic, we were all shocked by the war in Ukraine. In a matter of days, the older colleagues were transported back to the time of the Cold War in a days. The younger generation discovered to their amazement that the threat, or even nuclear war, thought to be well truly over, was back in Europe. And millions of people have to leave their country to escape the bombings. With the brutal war in Ukraine, we were remembered when working on the new LIBER strategy how important it is that populations have access to reliable, open, and transparent information, are educated to deal with it, and to collaborate in developing solutions for the future. In many ways, the support of democracy is at the center of our new LIBER strategy. And I would like to remind you here about the absolute value, but also the fragility of democracy. Winston Churchill said, "No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all wise." Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. I come from Switzerland, a small country with a reputation for its efficient democracy. But even in Switzerland, in the now 40 years I have a right to vote, we had to vote quite often on items utterly threatening for democracy. Democracy is something that can never be taken for granted. It is very ambitious. And you have to take the greatest care of it every single day. So we have taken care of these issues in the draft of our new LIBER strategy 2023-2027. And as we are in democracy here, please consider giving your opinion during the Knowledge Café later on this afternoon. It is now my pleasure to declare open the 51st LIBER conference in Odense. Odense is the city of Hans Christian Andersen, whose stories we all know. He lived in troubled, fast-moving times too. May his imagination inspire us to find solutions to the challenges of our time within our competent, vivid, energetic LIBER community. It is a huge workload to organize a LIBER conference. So first I want to thank my dear colleague and ancient LIBER board member, the mighty knight, Bertil Dorsch, director of Southern Denmark University Library, and don't know where she's, Dame Charlotte Wien, and of their team, there are the people who will rock us here in Odense. And I give the floor to Bertil to begin with.
Wow, a lot of people. Great. To move, to breathe, to fly, to float, to gain all while you give, to roam the roads of lands remote, to travel is to live. Hans Christian Andersen wrote that. And here we are, from near and far, finally physically present all together. Like beautiful birds gathering around a pond in the story by Andersen, you have all traveled halfway across the world of research libraries to gather around a library here in Odense. What you may not know is that before his breakthrough as a writer, exactly 200 years ago, actually, published his first book this year, Hans Christian Andersen applied for a job as a librarian in the Royal Library in Copenhagen. In his application, he wrote and argued that he wanted a job so that he might be relieved from the burden of writing. Well, a good thing he didn't get that job. Since the foundation of LIBER, incidentally at my own birth year, the annual LIBER conference has visited Andersen's country a total of 4 times. 3 times in the capital of Copenhagen and at the Royal Library, and once at the former State and University Library in Aarhus. I am hence very proud to welcome LIBER back to Denmark for the 5th and most important visit, namely to the world's perhaps most famous storyteller's birth town, with the theme Libraries in the Research and Innovation Landscape. And I'm also very proud, nay, I am honored, to hand over the stage to our rector, the magnificent Jens Ringsmose, a scholar of social science and military studies, and our top boss here at the SDU since November last year.
Thank you very much, Bertil. Dear friends, dear colleagues, imagine for a moment that books could talk. So all the thinkers of the world could talk to each other from their own shelves in the library. What wild realizations would Einstein and Newton arrive at if they could talk about gravity together? And I wonder what Eureka moments Marie Curie and Aristophanes of Byzantium would set in motion if they talked to each other across millennia. It's actually not that hard to imagine. For books and knowledge have always stood on the shoulders of our ancestors. To create new knowledge, we must be familiar with the old and challenge it when necessary. This is precisely the raison d'être of research libraries. Welcome to the University of Southern Denmark and the LIBER conference. We are incredibly proud to be able to gather more than 400 participants from 40 different countries here in Odense to shed light on the significant challenges and potentials for research libraries in the future. In research libraries, you have a proud tradition of being a treasury for the intellectual development and history of humanity. And what's more, a treasury that does not hide its treasures, but is extremely keen to share them with the world. The free access to all kinds of information in research libraries is crucial for research. You cannot say university without also saying library. That symbiosis has over the centuries made libraries and universities a driving force in our societies. From the development of medicine to democratic societies, universities and libraries have continued to make tomorrow better than today. And academic freedom has been a crucial premise for this success. Academic freedom will also be crucial in the time to come. There is a deep need for new realizations if we are to solve the many challenges we are facing as a society today. Therefore, here at SDU, we have just adopted a statement on freedom of research, teaching, and speech. The statement makes clear the rights and responsibilities that academic freedom entails. And it'll be our map for finding our way to new realizations. The statement also tells the story of academic freedom in a digital age, in which the debate about knowledge has completely changed. Of course, the digital revolution also affects you in the research libraries. It's hard to believe how fast things have changed. When I started at this university back in 1995, studying history, we had a course on information and document searching. Amongst friends, InfoDoc. During the course, we were taught about how to use the library's books and collections. We also had a short presentation about something called the internet. After which my fellow student dryly stated, I don't think that thing, the internet, will really amount to much. He was, of course, utterly wrong about that. On the contrary, the role and methods of research libraries have completely changed since then. And I'm deeply impressed by how adaptable the research libraries have been during the digitalization process. They've already come a very long way in building up the digital treasury for the intellectual development and history of humanity. And I know you will talk much more about how you should further develop the library's digital possibilities during the rest of the LIBER conference. So without further ado, I would just like to say thank you for listening, being here in Odense, and I wish you all a wonderful conference. Thank you.
Well, dear Professor Rengsmose, thank you so much for your welcome here at this really impressive campus of University of Southern Denmark. And your kind words. It is really a great pleasure to be here and that you are present here at this ceremony. A few words now to highlight the LIBER work of this year, 2021-2022. I have already mentioned the work we have done in preparing the new LIBER strategy. We did also work hard to provide insights, materials, statements, and webinars on a bunch of other topics during this year. One important topic was the Digital Service Act. Together with CSER, COAR, and other partners, we released a public statement on exemption from Digital Service Act for research. LIBER continued also its work within 6 European projects and with the establishment and kickoff of 2 new projects. We also signed an international statement of solidarity for libraries' future. Urgent topics are many, so we did also work with JARLA, the International Association of Research Library Associations, on a statement in support of the UNESCO Open Science recommendation. The LIBER working groups, let me thank here all the hyperactive members of our working groups, produced many outputs as the Citizen Science Guide, Open Science Recommendation, the LIBER Architecture Forum, which was the first in-person event that LIBER could organize after the pandemics in Luxembourg, and the LIBER Journées in Budapest, our second in-person event after the pandemic, and the Emerging Leaders program, which is now again on here in Odense. 28 young leaders graduated in 2021, and 25 new candidates are starting this year. We continued also our support to open science initiatives in many ways, for example, by endorsing Coalition S letter to publishers. Here a few figures about LIBER participants. We are more than 400 participants. I think there are 427, as I have seen recently. About 40 countries are represented in LIBER, with 5 new participants this year. Welcome to our new members. I will now give the floor to our Secretary General, Anja Smit, for her formally opening the meeting of participants. Anja, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. With this, I open the meeting of participants of LIBER. In the meeting of participants, all the representatives of all the organizations, libraries that are a participant in LIBER come together to make decisions about what LIBER does and how it does. One of the things that the meeting of participants decides on is the composition of the board, the executive board of LIBER, of which the president, Jeanette Frey, is the chair. I have a few announcements today on the changes in the executive board of LIBER. You can become a member of the LIBER board either by being nominated by the board itself or through elections. I have announcements on both. First, the new nominations. There are new appointments that will be presented to you today to be approved tomorrow in the meeting of participants. New appointments are Sarah Lamens of the Royal Library of Belgium as an executive board member, Julien Rosch of the Libraries and Learning Center at the University of Lille in France as LIBER's next president, Giannis Tsakonas, University of Patras Library in Greece as vice president. These nominations have to be approved in the meeting of participants tomorrow. There's also elections for 2 vacancies in the executive board. There are 3 candidates for these 2 vacancies. The candidates are Anna Clements of the University of Sheffield Library in the United Kingdom, proposed by Jessica Gardner, Cambridge University Libraries in the United Kingdom. Dora Galne-Kaldi, Hungarian Academy of Sciences Library in Hungary, proposed by Paul Ayres, University College London in the UK. Third candidate is Hilde van Kiel, the KU Leuven Library in Belgium, proposed by Heli Kautunen of the Finnish Literature Society Library in Finland. 3 candidates for 2 positions. For these 2 vacancies, there is a closed ballot election. Everybody who is at this meeting and is the formal representative of his or her library and may vote, please get your ballots and your voting cards at the Libre desk. Please retrieve them and vote for these 2 vacancies before tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. This is important. Use your influence and come and vote. At 9 o'clock tomorrow, there are 3 tellers who will start counting the votes. The 3 tellers are Marcus Stumpf, Marianne Tint Christensen, and Lotte Wilms. In advance, thank you very much for the tellers to help us out. Again, we have a meeting of participants tomorrow at 4 o'clock. In this meeting, there's also renominations for people who are today on the board already and are up for a next term. The reappointments to be approved of tomorrow are Lars Borman, Director of Uppsala University Library in Sweden, Cécile Siatek, the Library Director of the University of Paris-Nanterre in France, and Adam Soronjevich, Deputy Director of the University Library of Svetozar Marković University of Belgrade in Serbia. Again, please come and vote and come tomorrow to the meeting of participants at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you, Anja, for this information. Again, go for democracy and express your opinion by voting. I now give the floor to Julien Rosch, Vice President of LIBER and Chair of the Conference Program Committee, so he can tell us a few words about the organization of this year's Odense LIBER Conference.
So, colleagues, just a few information regarding the scientific part of our conference. As you can see there, we had a lot of submissions. We are happy to see that you are all there, of course, but we were also very happy to have so many colleagues proposing some papers and some posters for the conference. So in details, we received 83 papers, 18 posters, 13 proposals for speed presentation and lightning talks, 9 panel proposals and 10 workshop proposals. So we will have a busy program. I would like to thank the CPC members because all this scientific program is possible thanks to their commitment, reviewing the proposals, framing the program itself, of course, with the precious help of the office, with which we have worked hard to prepare the program you will be able to attend in the coming hours and days. So the final program comprises 35 papers, 7 speed talks divided over 12 sessions, which is very important. 12 papers, 2 panel, and 10 workshops. So We hope that this full program, under the title of Libraries in the Research and Innovation Landscape, Supporting, Partnering and Leading, will be very much welcomed by our members and our participants. Thanks a lot.
So thank you, Julien, for this information and about the conference and its setup. Now join the discussion. Do you have questions? Don't hesitate to address them to the Libre desk in the hall. Comment and share what you like most on with the Libre tag on Twitter on the hashtag Libre 2022. Share your best pictures or insights and events on Instagram at the Libre Europe. And of course, don't miss the live streaming, the drawings of Fritz Ahlefeld. Just a little thing I have to tell you about the small Libre program. That's the one that you have received in this badge pocket. On this page, there are the conference reception venue and conference dinner venue with QR codes, and these two QR codes have been inverted. So don't be confused or be confused. That's last detail I had to tell you. But now let's get started with our first keynote. Julien Rosch will be the chair of the session and take over now.
Thank you, Janet. Just before introducing our opening keynote speaker, I would like to share with you an important information. We have a knowledge cafe this afternoon, starting at 4:15, ending at 5:30. You will have the opportunity to discuss the new Libre strategy, not in the framework of the strategy itself, but in the action plan we want to draw out of this strategy. So please come to this session. Hope it will be a vivid session. Many members of the executive board will be there, and we really would like to have your inputs so that we prepare the next step and the action plan for the Libre strategy. So it will be in room U45, and it will start at 4:15. So moving to the opening keynote speaker part of this session, it's my great pleasure to welcome Oksana Brui. Oksana is an Ukrainian librarian. She is the director of the Igor Sikorsky Polytechnic Institute Library in Kyiv. And she is actually the president of the Ukrainian Librarian Association. As our president Janet Fraisse said earlier, Libre is concerned about the war taking place in Ukraine. We have explained our solidarity with the Ukrainian people, and we were willing to invite Oksana to attend and be the opening keynote speaker here in Odense for months now, as an evidence of our support and concern. Oksana, I know you had a long and stressful trip. We are so happy to have you here today. You will explain how the library community is coping with this tragic situation, and I'm sure our Libre community will be eager to start a conversation with you after your speech. So please, Oksana, the floor is yours.
Sorry.
Okay. Good day. Hello, everyone. Добрий день. Dear colleagues, First of all, I want to thank the people from around the world who are helping Ukraine. I want to thank LIBER, Professor Bertil Dorsch, and the University of Southern Denmark for the invitation and support. I'm glad to see you, all of you, now. It is an honor for me to be here and tell you about Ukraine, Ukrainian libraries, and Ukrainian librarians. A few words about what and whom I represent here. I am a Ukrainian librarian, and I represent more than 30,000 Ukrainian libraries, 50,000 librarians, and 16 million library users. On the slide, there is the general library statistics as of 2021, but no one can say what these statistics are today. I am the president of the Ukrainian Library Association, and here I represent 14 regional divisions, more than 4,300 our members, and 100 partners of ULA. And of course, I am the library director of the Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and here I represent 140 librarians of our university and more than 24,000 users of our library. So, until February 24th, we all lived in our daily worlds, personal and professional. Ukrainian librarians, activists of the Ukrainian Library Association, librarians of the KPI library were concerned about how to organize the All-Ukrainian Library Day and secret book action for our readers, and how to celebrate the 27th anniversary of the Ukrainian Library Association online. We were concerned about how to hold the strategic session for libraries with UNDP and the School of Young Librarians to protect all participants from COVID infection. We have planned a new project on digital education to hold the conference on library education in March, the next anti-school of university librarians, and many, many other projects and events. The war was somewhere far away for most of us. Also, Ukraine has been at war with Russia for 8 years. And in 2014, Russia occupied Crimea and part of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, where the quasi-republics were created. On February 24th, we all woke up in another world, in which February lasts the 5th month. Russia started a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In this world, the everyday life of each Ukrainian is a line of air raid sirens throughout Ukraine. Russia failed the blitzkrieg and could not take Kyiv in 2 days. Russian-speaking cities greeted them not with flowers, but with Ukrainian flags and resistance. Unarmed people are coming out against Russian tanks to stop them. Russian troops are committing crimes against humanity. When they realize that they cannot take the city, they just burn the city, nothing. Volnovakha, Severodonetsk, Irpin, Bucha, Borodyanka, Mariupol. Today, each of us, each of Ukrainian, is from these cities. The whole world knows about Azovstal in Mariupol. For every Ukrainian, the fighters of Azov are heroes, and Mariupol is a symbol of the invisibility of our people. I would like to present you some statistics, and those numbers are horrible. 15 million of Ukrainians have been forced to leave their homes and become refugees. Just imagine for a second that you are being forcibly deported to another country. This is a nightmare that came true with many of Ukrainians. 1,200,000 Ukrainians, including 200,000 children, are deported to Russia. More than 4,200 civilians, including 238 children, were killed. The Russians say they came to Ukraine to demilitarize and liberate us from the Nazis. Instead, they are destroying civilian infrastructure. Thousands of destroyed buildings, hospitals, museums, hundreds of destroyed schools, universities, libraries. Now we know about more than 300 public and university libraries which are destroyed. In May, the National Library of Ukraine conducted the online survey of public libraries. According to the results, 19 libraries are completely destroyed. 115 libraries are partially destroyed, and 124 libraries have minor damages. In June, ULA conducted the online survey of university libraries. We know about 9 university libraries which are destroyed or damaged. And we know that about 300 university librarians have moved to other cities in Ukraine, and 180 librarians to abroad. Also, almost 1,800 educational institutions, schools, were damaged. Every school have a library. So we can say that more than 1,800 school libraries were damaged too. Unfortunately, in Ukraine, we have such a unique phenomenon as displaced universities and displaced libraries. In 2014, 19 universities with their libraries relocated from Luhansk and Donetsk to the territories controlled by Ukraine. Now, many of these universities are destroyed. Many of them, as the Mariupol State University, relocate to Kyiv or Lviv or other cities in Ukraine. These universities have resumed their education process and plan to meet new students in September. And we have one more and unique case with the Luhansk Regional Universal Scientific Library. In 2014, the library director and some librarians secretly took the official documents and the seal of the library from Luhansk to Starobilsk. In a new place, they created a new library, which became one of the best in Ukraine. This March, they were forced to leave the Russian-occupied city again for the second time. They led the library building, but the library isn't a building. First of all, the library is a community. Now, the librarians of this library live in different places all over Ukraine. But this library has not stopped working a single day and is constantly working online. This is the first wandering library in Ukraine. The Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine created a special site where everyone can register Russian military crimes against Ukrainian culture, and everyone can see it. And it seems that Russia wants to erase our culture, our knowledge, and our memory completely. Nick Poole, who is the chief executive of LIBER, in his publication in the Scotsman, described Putin's inventions very clearly. He said, Putin's real agenda isn't occupation or some historical reconnection, but erasure. The erasure of the Ukrainian people, their culture, their literature, their language. Erasure of the idea of Ukraine as a free and democratic sovereign nation. Once thriving Ukrainian cities become ashes. Torture, marauding, rape, mass grave of civilians, thousands of lives lost, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the genocide of Ukrainians are what Russia brought to our land. But not only Putin is responsible for all these atrocities, for blood, for burnt cities, for people's lives. All Russian society is responsible for this. In June, according to the non-governmental analytical center, Levada Center, more than 75% of Russians support this war. Russian librarians are also responsible for this. The majority of them are an integral part of the Russian military and totalitarian propaganda machine. They are responsible for brainwashing the Russian people and spreading disinformation and manipulation. Russian society is the society that gave birth to Putin. That's why not only economic sanctions are needed, but Russia must be isolated from the civilized world in all areas. We are grateful to the people and governments of all countries that support Ukraine. We are grateful to the support of the international library community. Your support is very valuable. Since February 24th, we have received hundreds of letters and messages from librarians around the world with words of support and how can we help you questions. The first week, I practically did not let go of my smartphone. After all, we had to answer everyone. We had to urgently make statements and appeals to professional communities and organizations. Believe me, this is not easy to do when Russian rockets are flying over your house. Librarians from different countries and many professional organizations supported our statements and appeals. You made their own statements and created special pages for support of Ukraine in your site. You bring the truth about the Russian-Ukrainian war to the world. The Swedish Library Association gave us its Instagram account for a week. You also say the truth in your social networks, in newspapers, magazines, on radio, etc. And we are very thankful to you for that. We understand that it's very important to communicate with our colleagues and to tell how we live now. So the Ukrainian Library Association organized some special meetings with librarians from different countries. For example, we have met with Georgian, American, German librarians. We are thankful to our colleagues for the opportunity to speak at the big international library events. As the Congress of Germany Libraries, IFLA, American Library Association, Occupy Library. Today I am here at the LIBER conference. Thank you. And some more information about a few important activities of ULA for our libraries and our librarians. We're convinced that librarians should remain librarians in any situation and fulfill their professional duties. We're convinced that collecting, organizing, and preserving documents about this war is the straight duty of librarians. So on the 6th day of Russia's war in Ukraine, we announced the collecting of documents about the war for the future National Digital Library of Ukraine. In a month, we managed to establish a coordinated process, and in April, more than 40 Ukrainian librarians began to centrally archive documents on the servers of the portico. In this war, many librarians found themselves in very difficult lives. Therefore, the Ukrainian Library Association and the charitable foundation Library Country organized a fund for financial assistance to such librarians. Till now, we supported 158 librarians. We were able to do this also thanks to our foreign partners. But we have already received more than 350 applications from librarians, so we continue to collect money. One more charitable financial assistance program for libraries and librarians affected by the Russian-Ukrainian war was launched by the American Library Association in collaboration with the ULA. The LA Ukraine Library Relief Fund is gathering donations for the Ukrainian library community as they face the challenges of war. Saving library collections and cultural heritage is one more important thing which we implement together with our foreign colleagues. Maybe you know about the Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage online project, which was organized by volunteers from different countries in the first weeks of the war. Many people are working together to identify and archive at-risk sites, digital content and data in Ukrainian cultural heritage institutions while the country is under attack. Now they have saved more than 50 terabytes of digital materials from 5,000 plus websites of Ukrainian museums, libraries, and archives. The consortium of European research libraries invited the Ukrainian librarians to the summer school on saving cultural heritage, which will be held in Vienna in September. Many international institutions, national libraries, and universities from different countries offer Ukrainian cultural institutions their help in archiving digital documents. They also give special materials and equipment for conservation and preservation of cultural objects. We are getting help from institutions from Poland, Germany, Latvia, Sweden, etc. In the last part of my speech, I want to tell you about how Ukrainian librarians live after February 24th. Unfortunately, many libraries were destroyed and damaged. Many libraries were closed, in particular in small towns, because a lot of librarians were forced to become refugees. But in regions where there is no active hostilities, libraries work as usual. And they are working especially hard. Libraries provide services both physically and remotely. Of course, the university library users use remote services more than physically. Because of 2 years of the pandemic before and wartime now, the educational process is organized distantly. In public libraries, the using of physical services is very active. And all libraries implement new models of library activities as answers to challenges which we have now. As I am university librarian, I stress on library support for education and research. Now we focus on 3 main points. The first is access to content. The scientific publishing houses which have opened their content for Ukraine via the Research for Life and other are helping us a lot in this, as well as rapid ILL service. Second point is access to Scopus and Web of Science and consulting how to use it and other services for research. And third point is open science and open educational resources in particular. Of course, a lot of other points we work, but they are main. Next feature of present library activity is that libraries follow their readers anywhere. Of course, if the library is open and if readers can do it, they come to the library and get books. But if they cannot, the library comes to readers. So in Kharkiv, which is very often bombed by Russians, a lot of people live in metro. And librarians come there with books. Some libraries offer their users book by mail service. In our library, we have offered this service since 2020, but now when many of our students and professors aren't in Kyiv, this service is even more in demand. Now millions Ukrainians are in other countries, and they need books in Ukrainian. Ukrainian Book Institute works systematically that Ukrainian books are publishing abroad and libraries in different countries are receiving Ukrainian books. Also, many libraries in different cities of Ukraine collect and send Ukrainian books to the libraries abroad, to Poland, to Germany, to Finland, etc., etc. Currently, there is no place in Ukraine that is completely safe because Russia is bombing everywhere, every day. So the bomb shelters are located in many libraries in different cities across Ukraine. Our alarms are quite long, sometimes several times a day. So people in bomb shelters read, recite poems, play board games, and even sing. As I told above, millions of Ukrainians have been forced to leave their homes and run away from Russian aggression, but not only to other countries and also to other regions in Ukraine. So the libraries are the logistic centers for internally displaced persons. Displaced persons are provided with informational assistance on settlement, registration with local self-government bodies, receipt of financial assistance, job search, and other issues related to the organizing and their accommodation and adaptation. In libraries, there are psychologists services where people can get free consultations from psychologists, art therapy and bibliotherapy activities that help people overcome the stresses of war. Of course, we pay special attention to children. In Ukraine, we have a situation where many people speak Russian in everyday life. Now I will not give reasons for this, I will simply state the fact. For the past 30 years, a lot of libraries have been offering their users Ukrainian language courses and speaking clubs. After February 24th, the demand for these services increased significantly. Many Russian-speaking people refuse to use the Russian language. So more and more libraries are expanding their services specifically in the study of the Ukrainian language. And of course, library work is a soft force for resistance to hostile propaganda and disinformation. Librarians conduct training on the basic of information literature and how to resist possible influences and how to independently analyze messages in different media and how to expose misinformation, and that you need to check first before sharing the news on a social network, and etc., etc., etc. And in addition, librarians are active in volunteering, making camouflage nets for the armed forces of Ukraine and territorial defense, sewing Ukrainian flags and camouflage clothing, collecting food and forming food packages, making dumpling and energy bars, collecting Ukrainian books for European libraries, sort out humanitarian aid, organize and operate volunteer flows, and etc., etc., etc. Well, libraries are open for everyone. Today, Ukrainian libraries remain islands of hope and shelter for all who need it. Every year, the Ukrainian Library Association holds a competition for the motto of the year for our libraries. There are our mottos for the last 3 years. Library is the universe in a convenient format. Library is your fulcrum, and for this year, library, joint actions for your dream. And now, our great common dream is victory. Sorry. This Russia's war is not only with Ukraine, but with the whole civilized world. Today, Ukraine is fighting not only for our independence and for the future of our children. Today, Ukraine is fighting for the future of Europe and the future of the world. In these difficult times, Ukrainian librarians, together with all the Ukrainian people, are fighting against Russian aggression. Each of the Ukrainian librarians brings our victory closer with his or her work. In the end, I want to tell a short story. When I was going to this conference, I planned to take Ukrainian flag to here, and I forgot it at my home. But we can see Ukrainian flag here. It is because my colleague have written to the face group Ukrainians in Denmark, in the Ukrainian woman who is in Odense now, brought me it. I am proud to be Ukrainian. I am proud to be Ukrainian librarian. And I believe we will survive and we will win. Слава Україні! Glory to Ukraine. Дякую. Thank you. Менгоцек. Sorry. Thank you. I am ready to answer your questions with pleasure. Maybe some questions.
Just stay with me. So thank you so much for that. It was quite moving. And I think you feel that everyone in the room was also quite concerned about what's happening, and your paper was just impressive. I've been impressed. You've been able to do so many things as a librarian, because during war times, we the librarians might think we are not so useful, you know, because it's the time for soldiers and so on. But you showed us that you were able to be part of what's happening to fight against this tragic war in Ukraine, to provide and keep over the long term the facts, the figures, documents, the pictures, so that no one can say in the future it didn't happen the way it happened. You've been able to save collections wherever you can for benefits of the future generations. You've been able to keep delivering services for the higher education and research community and beyond. You've been able sometimes to reaffect library spaces for different and more urgent needs sometimes. And generally speaking, what I feel hearing you speaking is that you've been able to sustain the spirits of the teachers, of the researchers, of the students, and of the people in Ukraine. So thanks again for this moving and well documented presentation. And I get that maybe we can start a conversation with the people here if we have some mic in the room, because I guess some people in the room will want to maybe ask you some questions about your presentation and situation in Ukraine. So thanks again, Oksana. So colleagues, yes, Tiberius. Wait for the mic.
Is not a question, is maybe a comment saying that I truly believe that you represent the battle between autocracies and democracies. And we don't probably realize what a big thing is, that the battle of these values is contained within the Ukrainian borders. What a big thing is that the battle of these values is contained within the borders of Ukraine, And we all participate on that without the human sacrifice. And probably we don't realize what a big thing that is for Europe. And for that, thank you once again. I'm sorry, I couldn't produce a question, a comment. I hope it counts.
Thank you.
Maybe this large amphitheater is not the right place for having such a discussion. I know you're here for a few days with us, so hopefully you will have time in different conditions to discuss with Oksana. So thank you again for Oksana for being here. Thank you again for delivering such a presentation. And and please feel free to discuss and start a conversation with whoever you want here, because we will all support you in the tragic events you are facing in Ukraine. Thanks again.